Welcome back, Fiat fans. So I got a box from Bob at Driving Impressions. What could it be? Ooh, ChipBox. So let's see what's inside here. You know, these are made in Italy, but it has a little Chinese export symbol on it. That's kind of interesting. The cables and instructions. All right, Italian and English. That's fun. These instructions aren't all that detailed, but hopefully we can fix that with this video. So what is a ChipBox, you might ask? It says it right here. It's a programmable module for petrol and diesel engines that improves torque and performance, offering an increase in a maximum horsepower of up to 30%. I think that 30% there is pretty darn optimistic. Honestly, I'll be happy if I get around a 15% increase. All I'm really looking for is to up it up a little bit higher than the factory Abarth. Now, when it comes to power adders, the best thing you can do for your car is to actually have it dyno tuned by someone who really knows what they're doing. And this little guy is a far cry from that. What the ChipBox does is intercept and manipulate data from the intake manifold pressure sensor, the boost pressure sensor, and the wastegate solenoid valve. Basically, when the ECU is telling the turbo to make a certain amount of boost, it says, yeah, go ahead and give it a few more pounds. And then it reports back to the ECU that everything's still just fine, no reason to freak out at all. So of course, whenever you're trying to cram more air from the turbo into the engine, you have to increase the amount of fuel that's being delivered as well. And this little guy can use the intake manifold pressure sensor and the boost pressure sensor to manipulate the ECU into delivering a little bit more fuel, but it mainly relies on the O2 feedback system. And the ECU uses those feedback systems to automatically adjust fuel and timing just like it normally does. So let's get this thing installed. Now, if you notice, each one of these sensor connections is a Y. One side plugs into the actual sensor and the other side goes back to the ECU. And this is how the ChipBox intercepts the signals and manipulates them. Now, I highly recommend you start with the sensor that the instructions call PREX 2, which is the intake manifold pressure sensor. It's by far the easiest one to get to, and it's located on the passenger side of the car, right up near the top. Now, the way you get these connectors off is you pull down on the little yellow tab, then push this raised black part and pull the connector out. Now, on the ChipBox connectors, you'll notice that like one side is slanted and the other side is square. The slanted side goes up where the yellow part is on the factory connector. So just slide that bad mamma jamma in, and don't forget to reset the little yellow lock. Then take the other side of the connector and put it on the sensor. Just like that. Now, the next connection you're going to make is to the Pierberg valve, which controls the wastegate solenoid. It can be found on the very front of the engine, and the best way to reach the connector is to come across the battery and down. And it's this guy right in here. That wasn't too hard at all. You do want to be careful routing your cables. You want to make sure you don't get them into fan belts or anything like that. Not a whole lot of room to work down in here, but it's doable. Sorry if my big meat hooks were in the way and you couldn't really see what I was doing. But I think if you get in here yourself, you can tell what's going on. Two out of 3 done. Now, that last sensor that they call PREX 1 is located right down in here, where you can't see it at all from the top. If you have skinny wrists, you might be able to get your hands down here and be able to do it by feel, but there's no way I can get my bloated meat hooks down in there. So I've got another trick. So take the passenger wheel off, and I haven't driven it in a couple days, don't pay attention to that. And that gives you more access to get to it from the underneath. To get even better access, you can pop this little plastic panel off really easily. See these little buttons? Just get underneath them and pull them up. And then these plastic grommet pin things pop right out. And just go all the way around, popping these things out. And then once you get all the hidden little pluggy things undone, you can just pull the fender liner down to reveal that last one on that plastic piece we're trying to remove. So in the meantime, just tuck the fender liner back up a little bit and just finagle with this thing until it pops out of that slot right there. It might be a good idea to put one of these clippy-doos back in the fender liner just to keep it up out of your way while you're working. Now without this plastic piece in the way, we can actually look up in there and see the sensor that we need to get to. A lot easier. You still have to do a lot by feel, but it's a lot easier to do it from down here than it is from up top. So you got that off pretty easy. After you feed your wires down from the top, all you gotta do is just hook it up. I had to set the camera down for a second because it's a lot easier to do with two hands than just one, so. But the most difficult part is done. To put this little plastic piece back in, we gotta get this tab into that slot over there. And then just start replacing these clips. Just like that. We don't even have any left over. Now the last connection we need to make is to the ground right here. Now since it only has a ground connector, I'm assuming it takes the power off of one of the sensors somewhere, but I'm not sure which one. Easy peasy. Now the instructions don't really say where to cinch everything up and put the box, which I think is kind of unfortunate because if they made some semi-professional recommendations, it would really help clean up the install quite a bit. But I can show you guys what I've done, and you let me know in the comments below if you've done one of these installs where you put everything to. But so I zip tied one connection here, another one here, and then I just started to bundle all the wires together here. And I put the little mounting bracket for the box itself on the strut tower here. If you actually had the strut tower brace, this wouldn't even work for you. So I don't know, you guys let me know where it should go instead of this. But the good news is it's easy to move. Now let me go through and nip all these off with diagonal cutters so I can rip my fingers open on them later. So all that's left now is to pop this thing in this little bracket, just like so, and connect up the plug. But wait, no, I actually want to test this thing out, see if it's actually going to do as promised. So before I actually hook this guy up, I'm going to put the bypass plug back in, just like so. Tuck that down out of the way. And now let's go set some baselines. Okay, I'm sitting out at a dam in the middle of nowhere, which is going to be long and flat and straight. And that's perfect for us to do some testing on. Now first I'm going to do some baseline runs. I got Torque Pro set up here. Hopefully I can get a 40 to 60, a 60 to 80, and an 80 to 100. And I plan on doing all those in fourth gear. Now in fourth gear, it just barely hits 100. So that might cause some issues, but I want to be able to sweep the entire rev range. Like starting off at 40, that's about 2,500 RPM, and it'll go all the way up to red line. So that's a nice good sweep across the rev range to test. All right, let's get out there and set that baseline, and then we'll come back and install the ChipBox, or activate the ChipBox, I should say. All right, gonna start off about 35 and then floor it. 4.7 seconds, 4.85 seconds, and then 8.34 seconds. Bring her back down under 40 and do it again. That was 4.5 seconds, 4.56 seconds, and then 7.8, I believe it was. Now we can flip around down here and do a couple runs back the other way. And of course I'll average these runs out to set the baseline. right, 4.3, 4.68, 9.32. You know, there's a little bit of a stumble right at the very top of the rev range. That's probably why the 80 to 100 is so high. But it seems like the stumble is at least consistent. All right, last one. .8, 4.78, and 944. Now all we have to do is plug in the chip box, pop out that bypass plug. Chip box goes in just like so. Now let's see what she does. All right, what do you guys think? Is there going to be an improvement? Let's find out. .7 seconds, 4.24, and then 7.19. All right, 4 seconds, 4.14, and 6.92. Let's flip around, do a couple more runs the other way, and then we can average all the numbers out and see what we really get. All right, 4 seconds again, 4.59, and 7.65. We'll do one last run here. Seconds, 4.53, and then 8.07. Well, the results are in, and it's about what I expected. We picked up 16% on the bottom end and 17% on the top end. That's not too bad for a little doodad that just lies to the ECU. If we assume the factory rating of 160 horsepower is correct, this netted us 187 horsepower. Which is a decent little bump over what the factory Abarth 124 is, and that's all I was really looking for. Considering the ease of install and the price point, that's pretty good. Now there is a way you can turn up the chip box to produce even more power, and I might experiment with that later, I'm not sure. One of the things I often hear about piggybacks is that eventually the ECU is going to relearn it and just tune it out, so we'll revisit these numbers down the road a little ways to see if it's still producing the same amount of power. Now the ChipBox doesn't change the factory power curve at all, it just bumps it up a little bit. So if you're looking to actually change the shape of the curve, you're going to want to go with one of the mail order tunes, or if you really want to spring for it, get a proper dyno tune. If you're trying to get the absolute most power out of your engine, you're going to want a custom dyno tune matched specifically to your car. But like I said earlier, it's pretty hard to beat this little thing. Thanks for watching, please subscribe, it really helps me out.